I pretended to sleep that night. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing slow and even. And what I heard in that darkness didn't just wake me. It destroyed my marriage, and it ruined the mother I used to be. When Patrick whispered, once the guardianship is approved, she won't be able to fight us, and my heart stopped beating for 3 seconds. When Hannah replied, the neurologist already prepared the report, something inside me shattered so completely, I wasn't sure I'd ever feel whole again. But I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I could only lie there, frozen, listening to the 2 people I loved most in this world plot to erase me from my own life. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more stories like this one. This is the story of how I, Eliana Moore, a 58-year-old woman who believed in the sanctity of family, discovered that the most dangerous place you can be is in your own home. My name is Eliana Moore. This house where I've lived for the last 30 years is more than walls and windows. It's my sanctuary, my history, my entire life built brick by brick alongside Patrick. We bought this place when we were young and broke, but full of dreams. Every corner here holds our memories. The kitchen where we shared morning coffee for decades. The living room where we watched Hannah take her first steps. The garden we planted when she started school, watching those roses bloom year after year, season after season. When Patrick and I got married 35 years ago, this house was our biggest accomplishment. We saved for the down payment, worked double shifts, sacrificed vacations. Every mortgage payment felt like progress. Every repair we made ourselves felt like love. Hannah grew up in these rooms. Her height marks are still penciled on the doorframe in the hallway. Her childhood artwork hangs in the upstairs bathroom. When she graduated college and got married, then divorced 3 years later, she'd come back here for Sunday dinners. Patrick would grill. I'd make her favorite peach cobbler. We'd sit on the porch until sunset, talking about everything and nothing. Those dinners felt sacred. I thought we were close. I thought we built something unbreakable, a family bound by more than blood, bound by choice and time and shared history. But about 4 months ago, something changed. It was as if someone had flipped an invisible switch. The first signs were subtle. So subtle I almost missed them. Patrick started closing his laptop when I walked into the room. Hannah would cut phone calls short when I came downstairs. They'd exchange glances at dinner, quick, loaded glances that felt like secrets passing between them in a language I couldn't understand. At first, I blamed it on stress. Patrick had been worried about retirement finances. Hannah had been going through a rough patch after her divorce. They're just dealing with their own problems, I told myself. Don't be paranoid, Eliana. Don't be that wife, that mother. But then came the locked drawer in Patrick's study, a drawer that had never been locked in 30 years. Then came the whispered conversations that stopped the moment I entered the kitchen. Patrick's phone would buzz, and he'd glance at it, then glance at Hannah, and she'd nod slightly, as if confirming something I wasn't supposed to know about. Papers started disappearing from the counter. Documents I'd never seen before would be shuffled away quickly when I walked by. My husband, once affectionate and warm, became distant. Hannah, once my closest confidant, became cold and guarded. They'd whisper in the kitchen late at night, their voices low and urgent. They'd rush to hide things when I walked in, plastering fake smiles on their faces. Then came the night that changed everything. I woke at 1:13 in the morning. The red numbers on my bedside clock glowed in the darkness. Patrick wasn't beside me. The bed was cold where he should have been. I heard voices downstairs, muffled but tense. Patrick and Hannah. Whispering. At 1 in the morning. I pushed back the covers and stepped into the hallway. The old floorboard near our bedroom door creaked under my weight. Instantly, the voices stopped. Complete silence. My heart pounded in my chest as I walked downstairs, trying to look calm, trying to look like a woman who'd simply woken up thirsty. Patrick was standing by the kitchen sink with a glass of water in his hand. Hannah sat at the table, her phone in front of her, illuminated screen casting shadows on her face. "Mom," she said, too quickly, too brightly. I couldn't sleep. Patrick turned, his face carefully neutral. "Just getting some water." "You okay?" But their faces showed fear, not concern. Their eyes held something I'd never seen before when they looked at me. Guilt. Or maybe calculation. "I'm fine," I said. "Just needed some water too." I filled a glass, drank slowly, watching them in my peripheral vision. The tension in that kitchen was thick enough to choke on. I said goodnight and went back upstairs, but I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The next day, while making lunch, I overheard Patrick on the phone in his study. The door was slightly ajar. His voice was low but urgent. "We need the report before Friday. She's getting suspicious." I froze, the knife in my hand hovering over the tomato I'd been slicing. Then Hannah's voice, from somewhere nearby. "Mom believes everything. Just keep acting normal." My hands started shaking. The knife clattered onto the cutting board. Something sinister was happening in my home, under my roof, and I was the only one who didn't know what it was. That night, I made a decision. I would pretend to go to bed early. I would lie there in the darkness and wait. I would listen. I would find out what they were hiding. I put on my nightgown at 8:30 and told them I was exhausted, that I'd been having headaches lately, that I just needed rest. Patrick kissed my forehead. Hannah told me to sleep well. Their concern felt like acid on my skin. I climbed into bed and lay there in the darkness, my heart hammering against my ribs. 40 minutes passed. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, careful footsteps. They were coming upstairs. They were coming to my room. I closed my eyes and slowed my breathing, forcing myself to stay still, to look asleep. The door opened with the softest creak. I sensed them standing there, watching me. Waiting. Making sure I was really unconscious. Then Patrick's voice, barely above a whisper. "She's out." They moved away from the door, but they didn't go far. They stood in the hallway, just outside my room, and they talked. And what I heard in those next few minutes destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family. Once the guardianship is approved, she won't be able to fight us. Patrick's voice, cold and clinical. Hannah responded, her tone matching his. The neurologist already prepared the report. We just need her to go to the appointment. Guardianship. Neurologist. Report. The words crashed over me like freezing water. They were planning something. Something legal. Something medical. Something that would take away my power, my autonomy, my life. By next month, we'll have full control, Hannah continued. The house, the pension, everything. I wanted to scream. I wanted to sit up and demand answers. But terror kept me frozen. If they knew I was awake, if they knew I'd heard, what would they do? So I lay there, barely breathing, my eyes squeezed shut, tears leaking from the corners and soaking into my pillow. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, discussing me as if I were already gone, already erased, already nothing more than an obstacle to remove. Finally, they moved away, their footsteps retreating down the hallway. Only then did I open my eyes. Only then did I let myself breathe. The darkness of my bedroom felt different now, suffocating and dangerous. This house, my sanctuary for 30 years, had become a trap. I turned my face into my pillow and whispered into the fabric, my voice broken and raw. "What are you planning? And why?" But I already knew I wouldn't get answers by asking. I would have to find them myself. I would have to investigate quietly, carefully, without them knowing I knew. Because whatever they were planning, it was already in motion. And I was running out of time. The truth would come out. One way or another, I would uncover every secret, every lie, every betrayal. And when I did, they would learn that the woman they thought they could erase wasn't as helpless as they believed. The morning after I discovered their betrayal, I woke up and did something I never thought I was capable of. I lied. I smiled. I pretended everything was normal. I went downstairs and made coffee, the same way I'd done for 35 years. Patrick sat at the kitchen table reading the newspaper. Hannah was scrolling through her phone. I poured 3 cups, added cream to mine, sugar to theirs, exactly the way they liked it. "Good morning," I said, keeping my voice light and cheerful. Patrick looked up and smiled. "Morning, honey. Sleep well?" "Like a baby," I lied. Inside, I was shaking. Inside, my heart was screaming. But on the surface, I was calm, composed, the same Eliana I'd always been. We made small talk about the weather, about Hannah's plans for the day, about nothing that mattered. And all the while, I watched them. I studied their faces, looking for cracks in their masks, searching for signs of guilt. But they were good. Too good. They'd been practicing this deception for months. An hour later, Patrick grabbed his keys and headed out. He said he had errands to run, appointments to keep. He kissed my cheek on his way out the door. That kiss felt like poison. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I moved. Hannah was upstairs in the shower. I had maybe 15 minutes before she came back down. I walked into Patrick's study, my hands trembling, my pulse racing. The locked drawer sat there, mocking me, daring me to find out what secrets it held. I'd never picked a lock in my life. But desperation makes you resourceful. I remembered Hannah's old bobby pin collection, the one she'd left behind in her childhood bedroom when she moved out years ago. I ran upstairs, pulled open her old dresser drawer, and found a handful of bent metal pins. I grabbed one and hurried back downstairs. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pin steady. I worked it into the lock, twisting, probing, praying. After what felt like an eternity, I heard a soft click. The drawer opened. And what I found inside made my blood run cold. There were documents. Legal documents. At the top of the stack was a guardianship petition, already filled out, already prepared, with only one signature missing. Mine. Except there was a version of my signature there, a practice version, forged and perfected on a separate sheet of paper. They'd been practicing how to sign my name. Underneath that was a scheduled appointment notice. A neurologist evaluation. In my name. For next week. An appointment I'd never made, never agreed to, never even heard about until this moment. And beneath that, a property transfer draft. A document that would transfer ownership of this house, my house, from me to Patrick and Hannah. Everything was already prepared. They just needed me declared incompetent, and then they could take it all. My vision blurred. My hands clutched the papers so tightly they crumpled. They weren't just planning to betray me. They were planning to erase me. To make me disappear legally, medically, completely. I forced myself to breathe. I forced myself to think. I couldn't fall apart now. I needed more information. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and locked the drawer again. Then I went to the family laptop in the living room, the one we all shared. Patrick wasn't careful with his passwords. He used the same one for everything, our wedding anniversary. How fitting. How disgusting. I logged into his email account and started searching. Bank statements. Financial documents. Anything that would show me what they were really doing. And then I found it. A hidden bank account. An account I'd never seen before, never knew existed. Under Patrick and Hannah's names only. I clicked through the transaction history, and my stomach twisted into knots. $64,000. Deposits made slowly, carefully, over the past 6 months. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. All of it taken from my pension, the pension I'd earned working for 40 years as a teacher, the pension that was supposed to support me in my retirement. They'd been stealing from me for months. Not just planning to steal. Already stealing. Already draining my accounts bit by bit while smiling to my face. I printed the bank statements and hid them in my bedroom, tucked inside a book on my nightstand. Then I cleared the browser history and logged out. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. That night, I pretended to sleep again. I went to bed early, told them I was tired, that my head hurt. Patrick kissed my forehead. Hannah brought me a glass of water. Their concern felt like knives. I lay in the darkness, waiting. And just after midnight, I heard it. Footsteps. Soft and careful. But not coming to my room this time. Going downstairs. Going outside. I slipped out of bed and crept to the hallway window, the one that overlooked the driveway and garage. The motion sensor light had clicked on. Patrick was walking toward the garage. And someone was waiting for him there. A man. Middle-aged, wearing a dark coat. Even from this distance, I could see the medical badge clipped to his jacket pocket. My breath caught in my throat. I pressed myself against the wall and watched as Patrick and this stranger talked. The conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes. Then the man reached into his coat and pulled out a manila envelope. He handed it to Patrick. Patrick opened it, glanced at the contents, and nodded. The man left. Patrick stood there in the garage for a long moment, staring at whatever was inside that envelope. Then he walked back into the house. I ran back to my bedroom and dove under the covers, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Patrick came upstairs, went into his study, and closed the door. The next morning, while Patrick was in the shower, I snuck into his study and searched. I found the envelope in his desk drawer, the unlocked one. Inside was a document with an official hospital letterhead. A cognitive assessment report. For me. Patient E. Moore. But I'd never been assessed. I'd never been to that neurologist. I'd never even heard of the doctor whose name was signed at the bottom. The report claimed I was showing signs of severe cognitive decline. Memory loss. Confusion. Inability to manage my own affairs. It recommended immediate guardianship intervention. It was completely fabricated. Forged. Bought and paid for. And it was dated for last week, as if I'd already been examined, as if the appointment had already happened, as if this was a legitimate medical opinion. They had everything in place. The forged medical report. The guardianship petition. The property transfer. All they needed now was to push me into that fake appointment, make it look official, and the trap would be complete. I put the document back exactly where I'd found it and closed the drawer. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My fear had transformed into something else. Something colder. Something sharper. Rage. But I couldn't confront them yet. Not without a plan. Not without protection. That afternoon, while Patrick and Hannah were both out, I called Ruth. Ruth Brennan. We'd been friends for 40 years. She'd retired from her law practice 5 years ago, but she was still the sharpest legal mind I knew. Ruth, I said when she answered. I need your help. And I need you to keep this completely confidential. We met at a coffee shop across town, far from anywhere Patrick or Hannah might see us. I brought copies of everything I'd found. The guardianship petition. The forged signature. The fake medical report. The bank statements showing the hidden account. Ruth went through every page, her expression growing darker with each document. Finally, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with fury on my behalf. Eleanor, as she said quietly, they're building a guardianship case against you. If they succeed, you lose everything. Your home. Your money. Your freedom. They'll have complete legal control over your life. I know, I whispered. But we can stop them, Ruth continued. We can turn this around. But you need to be smart. You need evidence. Audio recordings. More documents. Dates. Details. We need to prove conspiracy, fraud, and financial exploitation. Tell me what to do, I said. Ruth laid out the plan. I would continue pretending everything was normal. I would record their conversations using my phone. I would document everything they did, every whisper, every secret meeting. I would gather proof that couldn't be denied or explained away. And then, when we had enough, we would strike. Over the next week, I became a spy in my own home. I recorded Patrick and Hannah talking in the kitchen. I copied documents when they left them out. I took photos of the hidden bank account statements. I printed emails. I saved text messages. I memorized dates and times. I wrote down every detail in a notebook I kept hidden in my closet. I became meticulous, methodical, cold. And every night, I pretended to sleep, and I listened to them planning my destruction. One night, I heard Hannah come into my room. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady. She stood at the foot of my bed for a long time, just watching me. Then she moved closer, standing right over me, so close I could hear her breathing. She whispered, so softly I almost didn't hear it. By next month, the house will be ours. My eyes stayed closed. But inside, behind my eyelids, something ignited. Not fear anymore. Not hurt. Pure, focused rage. They thought I was weak. They thought I was helpless. They thought they could erase me without a fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Ruth told me the next step would be the hardest. You need to act vulnerable, as she said. Make them believe the plan is working. Make them comfortable. Because comfortable people make mistakes. So I did something that broke my heart. I started acting forgetful. That morning at breakfast, I put the milk in the cupboard instead of the refrigerator. I stared at it for a moment, then laughed at myself. I don't know where my head is today, I said. Patrick and Hannah exchanged a glance. A quick, significant glance. And I saw something flash across their faces. Hope. Excitement. They thought it was real. They thought I was actually declining. It's okay, Mom, Hannah said, her voice dripping with false concern. She got up and moved the milk back to the fridge. We all have those moments. Maybe you should rest more, Patrick added. You've seemed tired lately. I nodded slowly, playing the part. Maybe you're right. Over the next few days, I let them correct me. I pretended to forget where I'd put my keys. I asked the same question twice. I mixed up appointments I'd never actually scheduled. Each time, they'd exchange those glances. Each time, they'd grow a little more confident. A little more relaxed. They thought they were winning. But while I played the confused old woman, I was gathering the final pieces of evidence. Every recording. Every document. Every bank statement. Every email. I had it all. Ruth had it all. We'd built a case so airtight that no lawyer, no judge, no doctor could dismiss it. Ruth filed the paperwork quietly, carefully. Emergency motions. A revocation of any potential power of attorney they might try to claim. A protection order. A preemptive competency statement from my own doctor, the real one, the one I'd been seeing for 20 years, confirming I was completely sound of mind. She scheduled a legal intervention hearing, a surprise one, where all the evidence would come out in front of a judge. But before that hearing, I wanted something else. I wanted them to know. I wanted to see their faces when their carefully constructed plan fell apart. I chose a Thursday evening for the confrontation. A normal night. Patrick had made dinner, pasta with marinara sauce. Hannah had brought wine. We sat at the table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals over the years. I let them serve me. I let them talk about their days. I smiled and nodded and played my part. And then, when the plates were cleared and Hannah was pouring coffee, I spoke. Patrick, Hannah, I need to show you something. They looked at me, curious but not concerned. Not yet. I reached into the folder I'd placed on the chair beside me. I pulled out the first document and placed it on the table between us. The guardianship petition. Patrick's face went white. Hannah's hand froze halfway to her coffee cup. This is interesting, I said, my voice calm and cold. A petition to declare me mentally incompetent. Filed in my name. Except I never signed it. I placed the next document down. The forged signature practice sheet. But someone did practice signing for me. Over and over. Until they got it right. Patrick opened his mouth, but no words came out. I placed down the fake neurologist report. And this. A cognitive assessment claiming I'm severely declining. From a doctor I've never met. For an appointment that never happened. Dated last week. How strange. Hannah started to speak. Mom, this isn't what it looks like. Don't. I cut her off. My voice was steel. Don't insult me by lying now. I placed down the bank statements next. The hidden account. $64,000. Taken from my pension. Deposited into an account under your names. Theft. Financial exploitation of an elderly person. Those are criminal charges, Hannah. Her face crumbled. Tears started streaming down her cheeks. But I felt nothing. No sympathy. No mercy. I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a recording. Their voices filled the kitchen. Patrick saying, once the guardianship is approved, she won't be able to fight us. Hannah replying, the neurologist already prepared the report. I stopped the recording and looked at them both. I have hours of these. Every conversation. Every plan. Every betrayal. Patrick's hands were shaking. He looked at me with something like fear. Eleanor, please, it wasn't supposed to go this far. We needed. What? I demanded. What did you need? My money? My house? What was worth destroying your wife? Your mother? Hannah was sobbing now, her face buried in her hands. Mom, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. We were stressed about money, Dad said. Don't blame him, I snapped. You're not a child, Hannah. You're a grown woman who chose to steal from her own mother. Who chose to try to have me declared insane so you could take everything I worked for. Hannah tried to speak through her tears. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought. We just needed. You were going to erase me, I said, and my voice broke on those words despite my best efforts to stay strong. Replace me. Take my home. My pension. My freedom. You were going to lock me away, probably in some facility, while you lived in my house and spent my money. Do you understand what you were trying to do to me? Hannah fell silent. Even her sobs stopped. The kitchen was completely quiet except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. I took a breath and delivered my verdict. Patrick, you have until Sunday to move out of this house. Divorce papers are being filed tomorrow. You'll get nothing in the settlement except what the court forces me to give you. And I'll be fighting you on every single dollar. Patrick's face had gone grey. He looked 10 years older than he had an hour ago. I turned to Hannah. You are legally banned from accessing any of my financial accounts. I've changed every password, every PIN, every security question. I've notified the banks, the pension board, and my financial advisor. You won't see a penny of my money. Not now. Not when I die. I've rewritten my will. Everything goes to charity. Mom, please. Hannah's voice was barely a whisper. The guardianship petition has been nullified, I continued. My actual doctor has provided statements confirming my complete competency. Your fake neurologist report has been reported to the medical board as fraud. Ruth Brennan, my attorney, has filed protection orders and sent all evidence to the district attorney's office. If you try to retaliate, if you try to contact me, if you even think about coming near me without my explicit permission, you'll face criminal charges. I stood up from the table. My legs were shaking, but I forced myself to stay steady. You wanted to take everything from me. Instead, you lost everything. Both of you. Patrick finally found his voice. Eleanor, please, we can fix this, we can talk. There's nothing to talk about, I said. You made your choice. Now live with it. I walked out of the kitchen and went upstairs to my bedroom, the room where I pretended to sleep while they plotted against me. I closed the door and locked it. And only then, only when I was alone, did I let myself cry. The next few weeks were chaos. Patrick moved into a motel across town. Hannah went back to her apartment and stopped calling. The house felt empty and quiet in a way it never had before. Ruth handled the legal proceedings. The guardianship case was thrown out. The fake neurologist lost his license. The district attorney decided not to press criminal charges, but only because I asked them not to. I didn't want a trial. I didn't want to see their faces in court. I just wanted them gone. The divorce was finalized in 6 months. Patrick got a small settlement, much less than he would have gotten if he'd been honest. He tried to apologize once, through his lawyer, but I refused to hear it. Words meant nothing now. Hannah sent letters. Long, tearful letters full of apologies and explanations and pleas for forgiveness. I read the first one and burned the rest without opening them. Some betrayals are too deep to heal. Some wounds don't close. Ruth made sure every legal door was locked, every protection in place. She ensured they couldn't come back, couldn't try again, couldn't hurt me anymore. And slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild my life. I sit now in my quiet home, the home I fought for, the home I saved. The garden is blooming. The roses I planted 30 years ago are in full flower. The house is mine again. Completely, legally, irrevocably mine. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that moment when I pretended to sleep and heard them plotting. I think about how close they came to succeeding. How if I'd slept through that conversation, if I'd trusted them just a little longer, I would have lost everything. But I didn't sleep. I listened. I fought. I won. I pour myself a cup of coffee and sit on the porch, watching the sunset. The same sunset I watched with them years ago, when I thought we were a family. When I thought love and trust were enough. I know better now. I whisper the words into the evening air, a promise to myself. I pretended to sleep, but I woke up to the truth. And I won't ever close my eyes again. The house is quiet. The betrayal is over. And I am still here, standing in the ruins of my family, but standing nonetheless. Alone. Yes. Hurt. Yes. But free. And no one will ever take that freedom from me again.